Hello, everybody in Move, Think, Smile. Man, it's so good to see you guys. We've got some pretty big announcements coming down the road. But today we are going to be tackling something there are two words put together that you don't really hear very often, and that is decision and fatigue. And what we're learning more and more are how the ability to make decisions actually causes decision fatigue, and how decision fatigue actually leads to pretty symptomatic problems with people. It causes you to be tired. It causes you to become out of shape. It causes you to start living on autopilot. And if you're living on autopilot, there's a pretty good chance that you're bored with life. And what we really want to tackle and dive into are, 5 ways that decision fatigue is really causing these things to happen, and what you can do to turn it around and kind of fix it. And this is really tailored to those people who are out there who are business leaders, right? Who are leading teams in organizations, or, this business owners and entrepreneurs, people who actually, have kind of like, you could call them high powered positions. And what's really interesting is, Elea and I I don't know about Elea, but I know that for a long time, I would start reaching decision fatigue early in the morning. And Elea, I think it's really important to kind of like, what is decision fatigue? Can you help us understand and define it?
Well, decision fatigue is really understanding that the amount of decisions that we are making today, right? So really there's a lot of different stats out there, but the consensus is we make somewhere around 35,000 decisions every day. Now, that sounds like a lot, but these are minute decisions, like whether to get up or, sit back down, or maybe to take a break or to not take a break. But then there's a lot of unconscious decisions happening. And we are receiving more information now in one day than we received in an entire year in the 1900s. So we are just inundated with decisions and information. And it's a lot for us to process.
Now, okay, 35,000. That's the number of decisions that people are making in roles of business on a daily basis. And if I remember right, you were saying that is what, double the amount that we used to make in a week?
Well, it's in the 1900s, they're saying that's more than we received in a year.
Okay. So we're receiving 35,000 things that we need to decide about in a day, which used to be what we had to make in a year. Okay, do you guys see where this is heading? Like the having to make all these little micro decisions is really, really, it's causing fatigue. It's causing some stuff. And here's 5 ways that it is. And Elea, you can start with the number 1. Small decisions start overtaking the big ones.
Yeah, so here we really want to break this down as far as behavior goes, right? Because we're really gonna talk to you about the type of decisions that you're making and kind of how you're approaching it. And so this really has to do with being so filled up with all these minor decisions that now you don't really have the energy or the bandwidth to make the big decisions. And probably the easiest way to think about this is, many of you may have heard this for project management, but if you take a vase and you put tons of small pebbles in, and then you try to put big pebbles into the vase, nothing fits. But if you put big pebbles into the vase, representing kind of the biggest, most important things you need to get done, and then you pour all the little pebbles back into the vase, suddenly what could not fit in the vase before now does, right? And this is really a metaphor for understanding that we have to make the biggest decisions, first, use that when we have the most energy, and really start, setting aside the small ones, which, we were talking about this just the other day with Mark Zuckerberg, and a couple of other men who, decided, hey, I'm wearing basically the same thing every day because that's one less decision.
Well, I mean, a great example is Steve Jobs with Apple.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. He wore the exact same outfit every day. And there was a reason behind that, because he knew his brain could only make so many decisions in a given day. And he wanted to be powerful decisions. He wanted to save his brain energy for the big ones. Right. So he, instead of filtering out like, okay, what am I going to wear with my pants? Where are my socks? What underwear? What am I going to do? He just wore the same thing every day. Some people called him boring, or social, or, fatigue faux pas, not fatigue faux pas, but fashion faux pas. But look what he was able to do with his decision-making power. And I know I'm really guilty of that. I remember going through a part of burnout and about just being tired all the time, and my performance is just really down. And I would stress out, and I would take time to figure out what I'm going to eat. I would spend all this time like, how am I going to get to work? I would spend all this time, should I get mad at this person cutting me off in traffic? I would spend this time like, what exactly does this shirt go with these pants, go with these shoes? What's going on? So a lot of little decisions in there. Then when it came time for the big ones, wasn't very good at it. Wasn't very effective. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And here's another thing that, some of you may have experienced before, which is actually almost the opposite of that, where we're choosing to make all the tiniest decisions in our life because we don't want to make the big ones. And we feel like the small ones are where we have kind of the most impact. And, we're all about how the small steps and those small decisions can really have a big impact. But there's a big difference when you're avoiding the bigger decisions that you need to be making because you just feel like you don't have the brain power to do it, or you're never in the right space mentally or emotionally, and you just feel like you're completely out of balance.
So the trick here is to identify what small decisions. Now there's 35,000 of them. Okay. There's a lot of decisions in there. And when they say 35,000, I'm trying to calculate that, but it's like where your eyes go, where to look, where you're up here, where you're going to walk. There's so many things that are going in there. So the trick here is to figure out what small decisions are you making in a day that really don't do you any good.
Yeah.
Right. And can you plan out during the week? Can you, lay out your clothes for all week long so you don't have to think about that in the morning? Like, I'm going to wear this, this, and this, or just do what Steve did. Just wear the same thing every day. White shirt, pair of pants are good to go. It's, it's all good. Nobody cares what you dress like. They care what you make. They care the results you carry. So identifying those small decisions and then eliminating as many as possible so you're making less decision is a huge step in the right direction.
Yeah.
And then number 2 is basically gathering too much info. And I am extremely guilty of this. This causes decision fatigue to the point where I don't even, it leads into not making a decision, which is kind of number 3, which we're going to be getting into. But you're so worried about making the right decision that you don't make any. So you go out there and what you do is you research. And I'm totally guilty of this with Amazon. Thank you, Amazon. So anytime I want to go and buy something, like what was I looking at the other day? It was silly. It's like a $20 item. I think it was like a webcam or something like that. Like something I don't need to spend my time on. And I spent literally like 3 days reading reviews, making sure I was going to spend my $20 and doing all this kind of stuff. And I got to the point, it's like, I don't even know what I'm going to do anymore, and it's like just gathering too much information. It's like, sometimes it's just like, make the decision. Make the decision to move forward. Make the decision that you're going to change. Make the decision to get on the path that you need to be on. And then you'll adjust as you get down the road. If I would have bought the webcam that either sounded like crap or didn't autofocus properly, it's like, in the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't matter. So why am I really spending all that time? This is the trick here. Why am I really spending all that time gathering all this information when I know in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't mean anything? And it's usually because you're using it as a coping mechanism for stress.
Yes, and it also has turned into an unconscious kind of game in your mind, right? I mean, it's just been recently that we have so much information at our fingertips, but before that, information was it still is a massive commodity, but before, to actually get your hands on a book, or some information was massive. So we're so used to feeling like if there's information, we must get it, right? And we must get all the information. And what's really fascinating is, there's an author, his name is Barry Schwartz, and he wrote a book called The Parity of Choice, where he really researched how we make decisions. And he said, it's so interesting because we rationalize in our brain that, the more information we get, the better decision we'll make because we have all of these different options and we can weigh all the pros and cons. But what they found is that actually people who had too much information, too many options, that they actually made a poorer choice and they were less happy with their choice in the long run. Not only that, but because we have so much information to choose from, we actually get the whole fear of missing out thing, or this nagging feeling that maybe we could have made a better choice, right? And so, again, this is where we trick ourselves. We think, okay, more information, but actually it makes things worse. And I'm hoping you guys can relate to this.
And I'm giggling because I just totally did this. So Hurricane Dorian came through where we live in Charleston not long ago, blew over my motorcycle, knocked out one of my fog lamps. I call them my machine gun headlamps. They look really cool on the bike. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want to run halogens anymore. It's a motorcycle. I want to run LED for less power. And so these LED bulbs that they've got out there, they run anywhere from like 15 to 30 bucks, right? But I literally spent 4 days and I just opened it up and I'm laughing. I'm like, oh my God, I have 18 different light bulbs in here that I saved in my list so I could go back and review later. I'm like, dude, just buy one. It's a light bulb.
Yeah.
It's $15. If it doesn't work, send it back, get a different one. But I spent so much time on that when it came down to making some bigger decisions that day, I just didn't have the energy for it. I was like, I'm spent.
Yeah.
Mental energy is a real thing.
And it's so important, right? And so many people we talk to, they say, yeah, my health is crap, but man, just the mental energy. Like I can't think straight. It feels foggy and that sort of thing. And here's what's funny. So Adam, you had 18 light options in your queue. And from Barry's studies, he says, really the people who only had 3 options ended up choosing something that fit them the best, and they were happiest in the long run.
This
I think
is
that's
one of
fascinating. 3. That's all you need. Yeah.
This is one of the things about things like Amazon where they have 5-star reviews. So in one way, it really benefits us. So we know if an item we're getting into is well accepted, if it's liked, if it's a high quality product. And another way is it really kills the rest of your mojo.
Yeah.
Because you see the 5 stars or you see the 4 stars or the 4.2 stars, you see reviews, you've got like, oh, before I buy this, I know I'm going to make sure I'm buying something that's going to fit me, right? And that's what goes through the back of your head, and you end up spending a lot of time on that. And where those reviews are really, really helpful, identify where you're wasting your time with the small decisions, because it leads to number 3, not making a decision. So I've still got my list of 18 bulbs here. Did I buy one yet? No, I totally didn't. I totally spent a ton of time researching these little LED light bulbs for my motorcycle, and I didn't make a decision. It ended up to my motorcycle still needs a light bulb, and I still don't have a fog light. That's what it ended up being.
Yeah. And this one is really important because a lot of times, for me anyways, and I think that I can speak for a lot of other people when I start to explain this, but that we don't make decisions because we feel like not making the decision is the safest choice. Not realizing this is going to be a mind bender, right? That not choosing is actually a choice. Mm-hmm. So we get stuck, right? Because we're just like, okay, I'm not sure which way to go, what to choose. So I just kind of won't make any choice. Or maybe I need to sit with this for, another week, or I need to check with my cat shrink, or I need to, do all of these things before I make a decision. And what's so important about noticing if this style of decision making is something that you use a lot is, again, a massive energy drain, because behind all that is the worry about making the right decision, which we'll get into next. But again, it's really blocking you from making forward progress. And one thing that really shifted this for me is understanding that, again, I was worse off if I didn't make a decision than if I made the decision and it was the wrong one. Then I would just, switch. But I lost less energy that way, less worry, right?
Yep.
And so this is really, really key, especially too when people are like, okay, how do I start making the decision on how to get my health back? There's so many options. There's so many choices out there. Which is the right thing for me? Should I read a book, take a program, call somebody, go to this doctor, that doctor? And again, you can get completely overwhelmed with too many decisions on how to help yourself.
So decision fatigue basically decreases your performance.
Yes.
Pure is the best way to put it. And we actually had a good friend from us, or a friend of ours from Australia who came and stayed with us last week, and she explained it really well. And she said, decisions are kind of like the cell phone or the battery on your cell phone. When you're at 100%, you're like, really cool, this is all awesome. But in the background, there's all these little apps making all these little decisions, right? And you don't even know that they're going on. And pretty soon your battery's dead, and you're like, what the hell? I didn't even make a phone call. I didn't browse. I didn't play any games today, but my battery went down faster than it should have. Yeah. And that's what's happening with you. And that is, you're making decisions subconsciously in the back of your brain. All these little apps are like checking for online messages and doing all this kind of stuff. And next thing you know, you're wiped out.
Yeah.
So you've got to identify what kind of background apps are running in your brain, so you actually start making decisions and you don't get fatigued from it.
Yeah.
And that leads us into number 4, waiting or trying to make the perfect decision.
Yeah.
And
So
so,
I was going to say this stems obviously from one thing, which is, okay, I won't make a decision because I can't make the perfect one, right?
mhm,
And really understanding that so many business mentors that we've had, and so much of the advice that we've actually received around decision making is that the people who can make decisions faster tend to be the more successful people,
mhm,
because they just power themselves forward. Even if they make the wrong decision, they've still just made it, and then they switch direction and run like crazy, and then switch direction and run like crazy.
mhm.
While some of us are still sitting back there undecided about taking that first step, right?
Yes.
And so this is where perfectionism can really keep you stuck. Again, bringing it back to health. Is this the perfect person to help me? Right?
Right.
Is this the perfect time to do this? Is this the perfect setup? Is this the perfect this, that? And again, we can spend way too much time in analyzing each little detail and then never moving forward.
Most people do.
Yeah.
Most people do. Decision fatigue is actually one of the biggest reasons people end up becoming tired. It's not only fatigue with the decisions, but it wears down your body.
Yeah.
It does, because what it ends up doing is it ends up triggering a stress response. And the stress response is, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do, or I haven't made a decision, or you start causing anxiety, you start worrying about it. And when you do that, when you start worrying about stuff, you're literally sending messages of threat. I'm going to geek out here for a second, down to your cells. And your cells are going like, holy crap, we need to go into defense mode. They literally light up what they call the cell danger response, shift your mitochondria down to lower energy production because they think there's a threat out there. And all it is you can't make a decision, or you've made too many decisions and not the ones that count. So if you're waiting for the perfect decision, I don't think I've ever seen one. Have you?
Yeah, never. I mean, yeah. Again, this kind of comes back to especially relevant now because we have so much option, right? So again, it brings us back to what we talked about in the beginning, which is this nagging feeling that I could have made a better choice.
Right.
And what we really need to accept and embrace is the choice is good enough. And if I find that I need to change that choice, I will, right? And this comes back to having the confidence to just embrace and accept the choice that you're going to make and move forward. But again, so many people we talk to on the phone, one of their biggest complaints is that they just feel stuck. They feel completely stuck. And I think one of the best descriptions was this woman said, I feel like the road runner when he started to run really, really fast and but he would dig a hole in the dirt, right? Because he's moving so fast, but then it's like, I'm not really moving anywhere. I'm just
Right.
digging a hole deeper, 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 but my legs are moving really, 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 really fast. And this is, again, looking at how you make decisions can really affect whether you get your energy back or not.
And I'm making an adjustment to one of our little slides here.
All right.
And I'm going to call this 4B. All right. And what's interesting here is not making a decision is still a decision.
Yes.
Okay. This is like that time warp thing that happens in movies, You go in to make a decision. If you choose not to make a decision, you're choosing not to make a decision. And it's still a decision. And that decision leads to fatigue. It leads to decision fatigue. It leads to mental fatigue. It leads to physical fatigue. It's a butterfly effect. I don't think I need to go and explain that one. But not making a decision is still making a decision. It's crazy. And then number 5, and I'm going to let Elea take this one because she understands that a lot better than I do. And this is really fear-based decisions.
Yeah, so when we look at trying to make a decision when we're sitting in fear, which can really be anything between, anxiety, overwhelm, depression, anger, a lot of the underlying base emotion in that is fear, right? Mm-hmm. Fear of making the wrong choice, fear of upsetting someone, fear of maybe getting fired because you made this wrong choice, or losing your business because you made this wrong choice. The stakes feel really high. And so fear starts creeping in. And again, our fear, as I'm sure many of you have heard, it's important, right? It's there to protect us from putting our hand on a hot stove or jumping off a cliff. But again, really starting to realize that if you're in a space of fear, it's probably not the best time to make a decision, because a lot of times when people make decisions based in fear, they end up in a place that they didn't mean to, right? And so what's really key is, what is your state when you're getting ready to make that decision? Are you feeling totally fearful, or are you totally confident? Because you're going to get two different results on, what you get from those states. And so it's just really about understanding how our emotional state can affect how we make those decisions. And again, too much of the time, people are sitting in that fearful place and trying to make decisions about their health and only sliding backwards.
And as I like, and as I like to call it, it's like decisions, friend or foe.
Yeah.
And they honestly they can be both, right? Decisions can actually tear you down. The simple act of having too many things, letting things get overwhelming, spending too much time on piddly stuff that really doesn't matter. I mean, you guys have heard this before, but the scientific evidence behind what's going on with the neurons is crazy on how it actually wears your body out, right? The simple act of just having too many decisions, 35,000 decisions in a day, which is what people back in would you say 1900s?
Yes.
Were making in approximately a year. 35,000.
The information they received was within a year, right, of what we did.
Yeah. So Facebook message or text message, all right, do I click here? Do I go here? It's like, that's what's doing it. You know, do I respond to this person? Do I respond to who do I respond to? And it's like, it just goes on and on and on. And of course that technology didn't exist back then. So they had a lot less decisions. They also had a lot less health problems. They did. They didn't have the healthcare we did. I mean, they definitely had more problems with like infectious diseases, right? And infections and bacteria and viruses and stuff like that. But that's really not a big problem anymore for us,
Yeah, we're dealing with very different diseases of lifestyle, really.
Yeah. Decisions, if you have decision fatigue, it's a disease of lifestyle and it causes a lot of other things. But decisions can also be your friend. When you learn how to make them properly and you learn how to focus on those one or two things that are going to get you through the day, and you decrease the amount of decisions you're making, you're saying, I don't need to make this decision. So you can take this, there it is, and you can put it over here. You can turn it off, because in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter, right? Unless there's an emergency. And then you can get down and you can focus on the things that need to be focused on. When you make less decisions and you're making the big ones, then all the other little ones just kind of fall into place and you're more creative.
And this is where, one thing that I always share with people is to follow the energy, right? So look at your energy rhythms throughout the day and notice when you feel most alert and creative and when you feel most bogged down. And do everything in your power to set aside the time when you feel most alert to be making those most important decisions, right?
Yes.
Save that time. I know for me, it took me a while to figure out I needed to just say, hey, this time in the morning, this is when I'm most creative, I'm most powerful, and I have to shut out the world so that I can really focus on these bigger decisions I need to make during that time. And then all those little small decisions can come in later, which is so key. And I think the other important thing to say here with the small decisions is, okay, even if you feel like you can't cut any of those out, can you stop telling yourself a dramatic story about each one, right? We can get so wrapped up in these dramatic stories about what this decision means, right? Whether to buy the blue carpet or the red carpet, or whether to do this project or that project, or whether it should be Arial font versus, Roman, whatever font. Right. Like, we can just really wrap up these big stories about what this decision is going to mean. And we need to say no to the drama around those small decisions.
Oh, dude, don't get me started on font anxiety. Being a designer and coming in and working with fonts, and it's like, oh my God, what's going to have the best readability score? In the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't matter. As long as you got your message across, it's concise and you're hitting the right people. But I think what's really important here is, the ability to make a decision. Okay, and a lot of people have a decision to make, especially when they're late 30s or 40s or 50s, 60s, later on, because that's when you really start to feel the effects of slowing down. Now, society has taught us that slowing down is a natural part of the aging process, which it kind of is for sure. Don't get me wrong there, but it's happening at a much accelerated rate than it needs to be.
Yeah.
And people are like, okay, well, what do I need to do for myself? Oh my gosh, I need to make all these decisions. I need to take care of all these other people, and I'm not giving myself the care that I need. So a decision that you can make right now, guys, is you can go to movethinksmile.com/talk and book a no-cost breakthrough session to talk to Elea or myself about your performance, about your energy, about your fatigue. I mean, every one of us, getting to your 40s, getting to your 50s or stuff like that, that's when stuff's supposed to start happening. That's when you're supposed to be having success with your career. That's when you're supposed to be like enjoying life. And yet there's so many people that are rolling into their 40s absolutely miserable. They're down on life. Things aren't the way they are. There's a lot of burnout. They don't have any motivation. I just talked to a couple people today. One's experiencing chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia, all because of a lot of stress in their life. And another person is just like, I can't really move forward in my career. I can't take my business to the next level. I'm terrified to change my career, and I don't really want to be doing what I'm doing anymore. This is all decision fatigue.
Yeah.
And if you want to experience like elite performance, and we mean elite performance not only with your career but with your life, you've got to make your health non-negotiable. And it's really tough. And that's why we're here to help support you. Elea?
Yeah, I was going to say, making a powerful decision to not live in this mediocre state or even just a really painful state, with fibromyalgia and things like that. Again, I think a lot of times people will get stuck in one of those decision behaviors we talked about and not make a change, right? Yeah. And continue to suffer. And, we don't want that for you guys. I know you don't want that. And I think what's also so important is to realize with so many people that we talk to, I mean, we're living so much longer than we used to, right? So hitting 40 or 50, that's like only halfway through. And to feel like you're completely done already and you want to just like throw in the towel.
No.
You're only halfway through.
No. I rolled into my 40s a fat ass. Totally not enough energy. Things look great on paper, but I wasn't happy. I was fat. I was out of shape. I was bored. I was really bored. I just wasn't getting out and experiencing the things I wanted to. So guys, there's an easy decision you can make right now. You either want to be full of energy or you don't. And if you do, we're making the path to that simple. It doesn't cost you anything. Go to movethinksmile.com/talk and book a call to speak to one of us. That's it. And on that note, Elea, do you have any parting shots? Anything else you want to say?
No, just if anything, resonated with you today on what we said, leave us a comment or shoot us a question. If you have any questions, you can send us a Facebook message or you can hop on our website and send us a message there. We're available. So yeah, let us know how we can support you.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this on our YouTube channel or on a podcast, come on over to Facebook and join Move, Think, Smile and follow us. And you guys can have access to all of our live trainings, all of our live content. And if there's anything that you would like us to talk about or to dive deeper into, something you want to know more about or you want to learn how to do, feel free to reach out to us. Send us a private message, put a comment in the box below, or send some smoke signals. We might be able to see them. You never know. And so until that, guys, we'll be back in just a few days with our next live and some pretty big announcements. Take care.
Bye, guys.